What is up, guys? It is the Sound Alchemist, and today I'm back to bring you 40 facts on the Warhammer 40k universe. Today, I am going to do a video that has been highly requested by one of you guys in the comments. You know who you are. That's right, guys. Today I'm talking about Lord Commander Solar Macharius. Now, this guy is basically the Alexander the Great of the 40k universe. He was one of the best, if not the best, Imperial Guardsman commander in all the history. So without further ado, guys, let's dive into this awesome lore on Macharius. Macharius rose to prominence in the early 41st millennium, during a time when the Imperium's power was finally recovering from the devastating age of apostasy. He was heir to the planetary governor of Donia. Macharius was already a renowned Imperial Guard general by his early 20s. His brilliant leadership during the crushing of the Roxanne Rebellion, where he rescued Lord Commander Solar Phillips, brought Macharius to the attention of the High Lords of Terra. Phillips recognized the genius of Macharius and took him under his wing, naming him his successor. It was also during this time that Macharius met with the men who would go on to lead his armies: Sejanus, Borgian Crassius, Tarka Arian, Lysander of Chloropol, and Sirius of Laurentine. Unfortunately, Lord Solar Phillips was killed in the Lemont landings, and Macharius inherited his prestigious command. He was indeed the youngest in the history of that position. He then traveled to Terra for the first and last time during his inauguration. Using his new position, he oversaw a string of early conquests on the worlds of Land's End, Morbellum, and Jazofrezi III with his Donian army. It was at this point that the Macharius expressed his desire to launch the greatest crusade since the Great Crusade, at the dawn of the Imperium. By most accounts, Macharius indeed fulfilled his wish, and nearly 1,000 worlds were claimed over the course of the Macharian Crusade. At the edge of the galaxy, Macharius prepared to move onwards, but his army, never beaten by the enemy, wavered and crumbled at the prospect of exploring the psychic darkness at the galaxy's edge. The conquest of Macharius came to an end, and according to imperial records, on the return trip he died of a jungle fever contracted on Jucha, while others say he willingly died so he could rest with the old heroes of the Imperium, who would not balk at danger, unlike his men. However, the truth is much darker, and seemingly it was covered up by imperial authorities after his death. While battling his traitorous ex-protege Richter, who is said to have turned to worshipping Nurgle, Macharius contracted several deadly diseases, besieging the traitor world of Loki, and he may have only had weeks to live. Macharius was eventually able to kill Richter, but was in turn killed by a member of the Officio Assassinorum, disguised as an Inquisitor stormtrooper with the cooperation of Inquisitor Drake, who may have been sabotaging Macharius' war effort on Loki. However, to suppress the truth of this incident, the assassin then killed Drake as well, and the reasons and figures behind this conspiracy are all still a mystery. After his death, Macharius was canonized as a saint of the Imperium. No man has ever conquered more worlds, nor won so many battles, not since the legendary days of the Great Crusade itself. So great were his accomplishments that the ecclesiarchy declared Macharius a saint and renamed his home world Macharia in his honor. Now, Macharius was a ruthless leader, always pushing his men to greater feats of daring and courage. He would often bombard planets from orbit and then destroy the native population, but he did spare some worlds if they impressed him with their courage and resolve. He was a very spiritual man, campaigning in the name of the Emperor, and not just for his own selfish gain. He had consumed many desires, such that they were his guiding force throughout his conquest. He was also followed by a trail of many miracles, one such being that a bolter shell embedded itself in his chest. However, it did not detonate. He commanded many forces, and he had an equally notable general, Sejanus, who was always at his side. Sejanus was the one who told Macharius that his men would follow him no further, that Ultima Macharia was the end, that they would not venture into the Halo Zone, outside the reach of the Astronomicon. Macharius wept tears of rage and sorrow as he heard of his soldiers' refusal to go on. He remained bitter to his men for refusing this, drinking himself into a drunken stupor and decaying that he did not have braver heroes at his command. The first of Macharius' major battles was against the cult of the Angel of Fire, which ruled over the Karsk system. Here the cult was revealed to be a Zechian front, and a wounded Macharius faced down a Lord of Change, rejecting its promises of power through chaos and remaining pure. However, the crusade kept on going, and many human and alien civilizations were encountered. These are the most notable campaigns. The hive world of Persepolis, which was recontacted by the Imperium after 5,000 years. Macharius then joins the Janus' army while they fight across the deserts of Gedrosia. Macharius found a tomb of the ancient explorer in Jonia the Vargrant and grants his helm for himself. After this, a great battle against the Chaos Space Marines on the world of Zaga IV occurred. During this battle, this was when the bolter round embedded itself in Macharius' chest but did not explode. The confessors accompanying the crusade declared it to be a miracle and a sign of the Emperor's grace. After this, the Battle of Toth began, and General Arian took on the last enemy position on this planet after Macharius arrived with reinforcements. After this, General Borgian Cassius invaded the highly advanced human civilization of the planet Ardrantis V. Ardrantis V and its advanced technology held Macharius at bay for almost 2 years, with General Crassus' army's group losing 90% of its men during the fighting. However, in the end, the War Master only defeated this planet after redirecting a comet towards the world. So basically, overall, in the first year of the crusade, 100 worlds fell. During the second year, 300. And in the third, nearly 700 planets had fallen to Macharius' army. Each of them was systematically wiped out or brought under the dominion of the Imperium. In the wake of Macharius' conquering came the missionaries of the ecclesiarchy and inquisitorial teams to re-establish the imperial yoke on these planets. By the end of the crusade, Macharius' army stood undefeated and at the edge of the Western Galaxy, facing the Halo Zone and the limits of the light of the Astronomicon. This region was once again cut off by the Imperium and the home to the civilizations that knew not the Emperor. At this point, Macharius' generals and troops wavered. They pleaded him to reconsider advancing into the Halo stars. His fleet would be slow due to the difficulty of the navigators using their warp abilities to travel. The astropaths would be beyond the range of the communication back to Imperial space. Moreover, his armies had simply run out of energy after many long battles. Many of his troops were also fearful of what lay beyond. Most scout teams sent out into the Halo zones never returned, and those that did had stories of strange phenomenon, of haunted stars and entire worlds inhabited by ghosts. Faced with this refusal to advance, Macharius became furious and accused his men of betrayal and cowardice. He then locked himself in his stateroom, drinking himself into a drunken stupor. But when Macharius finally reappeared, he ordered his fleet to set course back to Imperial space. Then his soldiers cheered with the War Master calling him a hero, and his generals breathed a sigh of relief. However, Macharius was a broken man, and his dreams of boundless conquest were shattered in the face of humanity's frailty. After Macharius' death, his body was returned to Macharia, where the crusade had originally began. A massive funeral took place, which was attended by adepts, ministers of the ecclesiarchy, tech priests, and many other important figures wishing to pay their respects to this man. 1 million men led the funeral procession, and 100 generals laid their swords on his ornate sarcophagus. Unfortunately, the legend of Macharius does not end on a good note. After his death, the Macharian heresy began. After the death of Macharius, the rivalry between his 7 army group generals erupted into a massive civil war throughout the newly conquered territories. Eventually, the swath of territory conquered by Macharius splintered into warring miniature empires, each ruled over by one of Macharius' old generals, who abandoned their oaths of loyalty to the Imperium and opposed not only each other, but the authority of the Adeptus Terra. In addition, Space Marine chapters that took part in the Crusade came to blows over petty disputes, such as the Doom Warriors and the Inceptors. The Dark Angels also played a major role during the unrest, suppressing civil wars and uncovering corrupt Alpha Legion affiliates all over these planets over 3 decades. The Dark Angels also followed the unmistakable signs of Cypher's presence during this unrest. Overall, it was a 70-year-long crusade under War Master Solomon, consisting of over 100 Space Marine chapters, to finally put an end to this heresy. The majority of the worlds that were under the rule of Macharius' old warlords were pacified and reincorporated into the Imperium. The meaning of victory is not to defeat your enemy, but to utterly destroy him, to eradicate him from living memory, to leave no remnant of his endeavors, to crush utterly his every achievement, and remove from all record his every trace of existence. From that defeat, no enemy can ever recover. That is the meaning of victory. And that brings us to the end of this 40 Facts video. Really awesome character. He basically reminds me of like the second coming of the Emperor, because this is just a human, man. An Imperial Guard soldier did all this. He reclaimed basically 1,000 planets. He is literally a god in the eyes of the Imperial Guard. But unfortunately, everything cannot be so happy, so awesome for him. His men pretty much got tired of winning. They're like, yo, we've done this for so many years, you know, we can't be defeated, but we don't want to go over there, it's scary. So yeah, I mean, humanity's frailty was his downfall. I wonder what would have happened if he would have actually gone past the Ghoul stars into this unknown space. Most likely they probably would have died, but again, I think this would have been a more fitting end to this awesome man. But if you guys want to go more in depth, I highly recommend you guys read the novel Angel of Fire, as well as The Fall of Macharius. Now they're both written by William King, so highly recommend these books. Really awesome works if you want to get more into this man's life. Now, like I said before, Macharius was based on Alexander the Great, so it's pretty awesome because like a lot of his story deals with generals and whatnot, and how after his death, his generals began fighting among themselves. That's exactly what happened with Alexander the Great. He was an awesome leader. After he died, his generals fought amongst themselves, and they basically splintered, or like basically undid all his achievements because of their hubris. But anyway, guys, this was the lore on the great man known as Lord Commander Solar Macharius. Thank you for for trying so hard to get us to do this. You subscriber, you. For like the past 2 weeks, you've been commenting on every video to do Macharius, and hey, it paid off, because eventually you requested it so many times that the tallies added up, and boom, you were next. So again, guys, if you guys want us to do something, please let us know in the comments below. We do tally them up, and we try to do the most requested, so hit us up that way. Also, don't forget, guys, Halloween is coming up, and that means creepy stuff is coming. So yeah, we are doing creepy pastas and like goosebumpy stories and whatnot. So be ready for Halloween. That week leading up to Halloween, there's going to be a bunch of scary stuff, some extra videos coming up, and maybe some giveaways. So stay tuned for that, guys. And that's pretty much all I have. Don't forget, we do have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a Twitter page, and a Patreon page. So hit us up on all those social media places. As always, guys, I am known as the Sound Alchemist, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.